Cell actually did fall apart, but that was a side that we couldn't see from where we had evacuated, so we didn't know. So we put our son to sleep, and I ran back into our room to get the food that we had in the fridge because I didn't know how long we were going to be outside. You know, we might need those, and there was an aftershock while I was in there that was pretty terrifying. Didn't know if the room was going to collapse at that point. But I got a couple of the essentials and got back outside to my family. Got through it, but I want to give you a sense of how devastating this earthquake was. I mean, there's no building codes, right? And there's no proper reinforcements, you know, in any of the construction that the majority of Haitians live in. You know, and I think the history was covered quite well about why the people are so poor. It wasn't an accident. This has been, you know, systematically enforced for many, many decades. But that's the poor construction that they were living in all came crashing down on their head, and we just saw the most gruesome injuries you can possibly imagine. And we had only one box of medical supplies, so we basically had to, you can see the sheet strips on my shoulder there. This is another guest at the hotel. We didn't have any medical training either, but a few of us volunteered to help. And you see this elderly woman came in, and we're wrapping a splint on her broken arm. And you can see the one box of medical supplies that we went through very quickly. So this was early in the evening. So that's JH right there in the foreground. Just an incredible guy. Just so calm and collected and methodical, and just went through and helped people around the clock without proper supplies. And I'm grateful for how he was able to facilitate us helping at all. So this is the one photo in the whole presentation that my wife or I didn't take. This was a journalist who was staying at our hotel, Villa Creole, and this actually got posted to Yahoo News and went around the internet. And my mom actually saw this and knew we were okay when she saw this photo. This is my wife in the foreground, JH down here. I'm in the background after having wrapped that man's arm. And if you can see, the hotel owner was very charitable. She didn't care about the hotel anymore, and she let us take whatever we need. So we broke chairs and we used the wood for splints. You can see those are the lawn chairs and the lounge chairs that went around the pool. So we got all those out, and we put these badly injured people into the different chairs. So we were basically just working off adrenaline, you know. I mean, people coming in with arms that were severed and limbs barely attached, and we didn't have any pain medication at all. So it was terrifying. So we just didn't think and just kept moving one patient to the next, and they just kept coming and coming in waves of people. And it was that evening, the next stroke of luck for my family. I just can't tell you how lucky we were, was that a friend of my wife's came and picked us up. And my mom also knew him and had sent him an email earlier that day before the quake had happened saying we were at the hotel, and if he had some free time, he should come look us up and hang out for the week. And after he had checked on his family, he came and got us. And his house had withstood the quake, and he had food and water reserves. And so, you know, his shelter and generosity really saved our family, I think, from untold trauma, because the fact that we didn't have to sleep out with this scene, I think, was so important for you know, I think our mental health and, you know, the well-being of my son and everything. So, because this was the scene the next morning. We came back to the hotel the next morning to continue the first aid relief, and you can see this man looking down in the corner, and first thing you see is bodies of people that didn't make it, that we worked on. And you see, they just throw a sheet over you and leave a note for your family. So in the daylight the next day, we could see some more of the damage. This is our hotel. You can see the roof had collapsed in, and that's where my son and I were eating lunch in that earlier picture. That's our hotel. That's right where we were eating, right there. So this is the makeshift tent city that formed in front of our hotel. Hundreds of people just coming and set up camp there to live, who were homeless, and to get medical treatment from this one EMT who was just overloaded and working around the clock. There's a woman that we worked on. Her leg was badly injured. You can see the hotel owner is this woman, Melissa, in the corner. She got right in there with us, helping to bandage. And basically we had to use the bed sheets for bandaging, for tourniquets to stop the bleeding, for basically everything. This one is, this one's hard to talk about. This boy, his father had worked all night to dig him out of the rubble. And he brought him to our hotel because all the hospitals are filled to capacity. And he was hoping he could get some help. And by the time his son reached us, he was catatonic and couldn't speak. And his father was down on his hands and knees, blowing into his mouth. Not CPR, because he didn't know CPR, just trying to give him life while we were wrapping that bandage on his head, the bed sheets. And he just died right while we were working on him. JH took his pulse, and that was overwhelming, because just thinking about how if I've been in, you know, if I hadn't been so lucky, that could have been me with my son. Just at that point, that moment, I think is the first time I stopped to think about what had happened in Haiti. We were just going on adrenaline until then. And at that point, I had to stop and catch my breath and take a break from what we had been doing. And it just sort of all came flooding in, like how deep the devastation was at that point. One of the most infuriating things about this whole thing on the second day was the helicopters started coming, and they were flying all day long, back and forth and back and forth.